But once Israel strikes out, and the first war starts, it is going to lead to one war after another, until eventually it culminates with the Malhama. Israel is going to wage these wars because Israel wants to take over from the United States as the ruling state in the world. Now, in order for Israel to rule the world, Israel must first demonstrate its capacity to rule over the Arabs. Make sense? Because Israel is surrounded by the Arabs. Israel has to establish, and they're listening to me in Israel, Israel has to establish its political and economic dominion over the Arabs. And the Prophet ﷺ spoke 1400 years ago when he said, وَيْلٌ لِلْعَرَبِ, woe unto the Arabs, مِنْ شَرٍ قَدْ اقْتَرَبَ, because of a great evil which is now going to come upon you. And he raised his hands and put his fingers like this and made a circle. And he said, today, but Protestants in Islam doesn't understand the word today. He said, today a hole has been made in that barrier bit by Zulkarnain, the Radam. And so the release of Gog and Magog began in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. Who studies Gog and Magog today? Who lectures about Gog and Magog today? Have you ever heard a khutbah from the mimbar on Gog and Magog? Never. And yet Ya'juj and Ma'juj are in the Quran. Alhamdulillah, I have a book outside, an Islamic view of Gog and Magog in the modern world, and Haji Radwan has promised to translate it into Bahasa. Alhamdulillah. When Israel launches these big wars, her first target would be the Arabs. After eliminating Pakistan nuclear weapons, the Arabs. How to establish Israeli political and economic dominion over the Arabs when the Arabs are so many? One of the weapons that Israel will have to use, that the Zionists will have to use, will be biological warfare. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ spoke about that biological warfare which is coming. This hadith is narrated by Auf ibn Malik, and it is in Sahih Bukhari. I went to the Prophet ﷺ during the Ghazwa of Tabuk, while he was sitting in a tent made of leather. And he said to me, count 6 signs that indicate the approach of the Sa'ah. Number 1, my death. Number 2, the conquest of Jerusalem. And number 3, he said, a plague. Today it's no longer called plague, it's called epidemics, like swine flu and AIDS. A plague which will affect you, meaning the Arabs, in great numbers and kill you in great numbers, the way a plague kills sheep in great numbers. And then an increase of wealth to such an extent that even if one is given 100 dinars, he will not be satisfied. And then an affliction which no Arab house will escape. And then a truce between you and Banu al-Asfar. who will betray you and attack you under 80 flags. Under each flag will be 12,000 soldiers. That part of the hadith is too difficult for me at this time. That truce, and then they will attack you with under 80 flags. But we do have a lecture coming up entitled Alliance with Rome in Akhirul Zaman, inshallah. A second hadith, which is in Ibn Majah and Tirmizi, narrated by Abdullah ibn Amr, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, there will come a calamity which will wipe out the Arabs. Their slain will be in hell. And at that time the tongue, Jazeera, CNN, the tongue will be more severe than the blow of a sword. The Arabs know about this. And so as soon as Israel launches her wars, the world of the Arabs, particularly Arabian Peninsula, are going to be in a state of expectancy now for that biological attack which they know is coming. But now listen. Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu said in a hadith recorded in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, he said, neither plague nor Dajjal can enter Medina. Neither plague nor Dajjal can enter Medina. In another hadith, even Makkah is also mentioned, indicating that there is a link between plague or biological warfare and Dajjal, indicating that the Zionists are going to use this as a weapon. So once Israel starts her wars, which are going to be soon, the Arabs know that the only place you can be safe, praise be to Allah, the only place where you can be safe is in Makkah and Medina. You will not die from plague. But if you're outside of Makkah and Medina, you can be wiped out. So as soon as Israel starts her wars, we can anticipate a stampede of Arabs moving to Mecca and Medina for safety. When that happens, then you're going to have both those who have faith in Allah in their hearts fleeing to Medina, and those who are also friends of the Zionists because they also want to live, fleeing to Medina. Those who are kuffar, munafiqun, they also fleeing to Medina because they want to survive. It is at that time that the world will see. It's going to make news. It's going to be center stage in the world when the biological war starts on the Arabs, and the Arabs are dying like sheep. It's going to make news, and the Arabs are moving, stampeding towards Mecca and Medina. That's going to make news. And so Mecca and Medina return to center stage in the world because of the plague or biological warfare. And the reason why they now occupy center stage is because the angels are guarding Mecca and Medina. because the angels are guarding Mecca and Medina. That is why neither plague nor Dajjal can enter Mecca and Medina. So we have now reached the stage where Mecca and Medina are now in center stage in the world, making the news. But that's not the end of the story. The rest of the story is going to make the Saudis very angry. Hadith of Sahih Bukhari. Anas bin Malik radiyallahu ta'ala anhu said, the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam said, there is no town that Dajjal will not enter except Mecca and Medina. There is no entrance to its entrances which is not guarded by the angels in rows at that time. But then he went on to say that Medina, not Mecca, Medina will shake 3 times. Is this going to be 3 earthquakes? Geological earthquakes? Or is this going to be 3 political earthquakes? Because of this chemical combustion, you have all of these people who are faithful to Islam and they despise the Saudi regime. And they're Saudis. And you have all of these others who are faithful camp followers of the Zionists. And these 2 people are together in the same town of Medina. The sparks are going to fly. And so the 3 shaking could be 3, what do they call it? Arab Spring? 3 upheavals, uprisings. Could be. Allah knows best. But when these 3 shakings takes place, guess what's going to happen? Allah is going to send every single kafir and munafiq out of Medina. And they will go and join Dajjal. Because he would have camped, he would have descended and camped outside of Medina in a marshy, salty land. Meaning Israel is going to attack. And the Israeli forces are going to be camped outside Medina. Because Israel wants Medina. Why? Because the Jews lived in Medina. Why? Because the Jews were expelled from Medina. Why? Study the story of Banu Qurayza. Why? Study the story of Banu Qaynuqa. And you know why Israel wants revenge. Revenge. So they're outside of Medina. They're camped, said the Prophet ﷺ. Dajjal is camped outside of Medina. And when Medina shakes 3 times, you know the story that the rats leave a sinking ship. The rats leave a sinking ship. These followers of Dajjal in Medina, Saudis, Arabs, would now feel that Medina is doomed. Doomed. So let's get out. And they go and join the Zionists. But the angels will prevent Dajjal from entering Medina, protect Medina. And the attack will be diverted to Damascus. When that happens, if you have not accepted Islam as yet, what are you waiting for? This is what Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam said more than 1400 years ago, that this is going to happen. Nobody else has said that. No Christian eschatology has given that. No Jewish eschatology has given that. Only Islamic eschatology. Only Islamic eschatology. So as the attack is diverted to Damascus, the world will see Medina once again in center stage. Because all the kuffar and munafiqun have been expelled. I don't know whether there will be any professors left in the Islamic University of Medina at that time. And these words are not being spoken in any insulting and derogatory way. While still there is time, my brothers, you must stand up. Stand up for the truth. And this is the truth, regardless of the price that you have to pay. And so Medina returns to center stage in Akhirul Zaman. All the world's attention is now on Medina, because it is now plain as daylight. Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, in his grave in Medina, has spoken the truth. And the angels are guarding Medina. And therefore the truth is here in Islam. When the attack is diverted to Damascus, it is at that time that Nabi Isa alayhi salam will come down. It is at that time that Imam al-Mahdi would be in the masjid. It is at that time that when Nabi Isa alayhi salam comes down with his hands resting on the wings of two angels, that Imam al-Mahdi will say, here he is, this is the Messiah, the son of Mary. It is at that time that Nabi Isa alayhi salam would kill Dajjal. It is at that time that Gog and Magog would then be destroyed. It is at that time that the Muslim army will be unstoppable from Khurasan. Unstoppable. And they're already fighting. NATO is the most powerful military force in the world. And yet in Khurasan, in Afghanistan, without modern weapons, they have defied NATO for 10 years. And now NATO is embarrassed by these our brothers in Afghanistan fighting.